Hey babies, it's your favorite host, Mr. BMG, back at it again with another episode. Let's get into it. Anyway, babies, I hope you have had an amazing week and you've been doing what makes your heart full. This past weekend, I got to go to the Red Dress Run in New Orleans. What happened in New Orleans? Q's Formation, first 30 seconds of that song. Always have to think about that whenever I think of New Orleans. Well, I'll probably say New Orleans because that's literally how you spell it, but that's not how you have to say it with the accent. But anyway, yeah, I went for the Red Dress Run and it was a really nice event. Like, it was something I heard of like many years ago, and when I looked at the pictures online, I was like, oh my gosh, it's a bunch of queer-looking people dressed in beautiful dresses, red dresses, and walking all around town. And it literally just looked like a pride, but with a theme, and the theme was wear a red dress. And obviously, there is a charitable reason behind the Red Dress Run, which is really the main reason for it. But I feel like a lot of people just kind of take advantage of the fact that, hey, let's wear red dresses and take a moment to actually play dress up and roam around the streets and do the most. So that was sort of the energy. It was really, really nice. Enjoyed myself. Minola is always like such a great time, always a magical, mystical time, and very rowdy, very loud, and yeah, it was really, really great. And obviously, it was my third time in New Orleans, and the first time I was there for Big Boy Pride, and that was also quite a cute little event. The second time I was there for Pride, like Black Pride, so it's like the third time I was there, and it still didn't disappoint. And it's just very convenient, and I just kind of like the atmosphere. It's one of those places which are like majority black, which is always a good feeling because you are surrounded by a lot of people of the same race, and yeah, like just a really great energy. And like the people, especially the locals, like the natives, the way they speak is so cute, and it's so likable, and it's friendly. Do you know what I mean? It's like the whole baby thing. It's just really cute. Like they really do have the cutest accent, and it's just like yeah, lovely. And you also meet a bunch of like interesting people who are in touch with their roots, the African roots. Obviously, it's got like a very hectic, weird, colonial, very sordid and not so great history, in terms of slavery and all of that stuff. But when you sort of come across some of the black people there, they're very in touch with their African roots, like by the music that's playing in the ride that's going, and and how aware they are of spaces outside of the general space in which they live in. So I think I really enjoyed that about it. And Red Dress Run, to be honest, like I think maybe it's just because I've been to so many different prides, that it all starts to feel like the same thing. It's like there's a weekend, there's an event happening, it's kind of like a pride, but it's not really a pride, but for the most part it's always a pride. There's a party that anchors the whole weekend, and often that's deviant, and it's basically a whole bunch of parties. It's like we create a reason to party, but not necessarily a reason to celebrate what's actually the cause of the celebration. And that's sometimes where the messaging gets lost for me. And it's like we are there to not necessarily have pride in ourselves, but to have pride, which becomes kind of a problem, because then it's like, well, there's a lot of people who aren't necessarily socializing, people are on their phones and too self-absorbed to actually take in the environment. Sometimes I'm guilty of that because I'm always trying to navigate social spaces, but not necessarily overly force myself to interact, because I'm also not that person. Like I'm very much like, I don't like small frivolous talk. Like it's exhausting. It's just like, how many times can we talk about the way that, what's your name, or where you from? Like those type of questions just irritate me. Like you have to come with something quite original for me to be interested to talk to you and have a conversation. So sometimes that's what gets lost for me. But yeah, it's like it just starts to feel like it's the same thing. And I guess the only thing that sort of stood out this time was the fact that everyone was wearing a red dress, and that was quite beautiful and powerful to see, because a lot of people just took the opportunity to really be their queer self. And I know I definitely took that opportunity and wore like this beautiful dress that had sort of green accents on it, and it was a dress that I bought back in Cape Town many years ago, one of a kind. And there's this lady who complimented me, was like, oh my gosh, you look like this artist, forgot their name, but I'll put like a caption of their it's the caption or a picture of the Instagram and the art, but essentially they're like, oh my gosh, your dress gives off the theme and the artwork of this artist, and it's just so beautiful. And really appreciated that. I didn't even know who the artist was, but then I got to know who the artist was. It turns out they're actually an African artist, I think of Ghanaian descent, or deals with a lot of subject matter related to Ghana, and it was just really beautiful. And I really was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. Yeah, other than that, oh my gosh, Nola, like always a good time. Red Dress Run, always a good time. Other than the fact that feeling of this is just the same thing over and over again. It's just a great gathering of gays, and they're just partying. It was a good time. Would I go again? I don't know. I'm not sure. and I guess to take another opportunity to wear a different red dress, possibly. And the atmosphere of New Orleans is always just calling my name, so I do enjoy it. And yeah, that was my weekend. And into the business of the day. It's award season for, I guess, VIACOM, and I'm going to talk about a couple of stories, but the first one I want to talk about is that the VMAs are going to be playing soon, and nominated in some of the categories is TYLA, and she's nominated for Best Afrobeats and Best Choreography. And I kind of felt some type of way about it. I mean, look, congratulations, she got nominations, but I do feel like that whole messaging, that whole speech she gave about the fact that African artists tend to be grouped into one category, even though their music speaks to more than that necessarily. Like, it can be pop, it can be R&B, and it literally fits those genres, but because the person's of African descent, you want to group them into that so that they're not competitive in other categories, which they could possibly win because they make really great music. So I was feeling some type of way about it. It's like, well, here we are again, you made the speech, but it's like they are still ignoring that and still putting you in this category, which you wanted them to sort of rethink, because she is a mainstream artist of African descent. But something like Push to Start is definitely a good R&B pop song, clearly, obviously, with the success, but beyond just the success, but just how it sounds. So for her to be pigeonholed in that regard is kind of like quite annoying, and it's giving control. It's giving like we want to sort of pitch her in a certain category, and I feel like she needs to continue to break those boundaries. Obviously, she probably has a relationship with Viacom MTV, so she's probably not going to put up a fight or have that PR, because everyone is kind of like irritated that she speaks her mind, which is so annoying, because it's like that's how far back we are as a society in how, one, people receive Africans, but also two, people receive women, and it just sometimes just irritates me because of the backward thinking and how dare you mentality. How dare you speak up for yourself, how dare you stand up for yourself, when that's what they should be doing. Then that's what I love about the generation of people who are coming up, Gen Z, my people, because I feel like I'm on the cusp of either the beginning of Generation Z and the end of millennial generations. I feel like I have an understanding and appreciation of both generations, particularly Gen Z, because I identify with them, and depending on who you ask, I'm the beginning of it or the end of the other. I just like her outspokenness, and I don't feel like it's something she should change. I think it's something she should stand on 10 toes on, and that will make her a more respectable artist. Those people who ride for her will ride for her because they know that the messaging and the integrity is there. So I would appreciate it if she actually did speak up, even if she won the category. To reiterate it, best choreography, it's without a doubt, Blishay really did that one, and Push to Start really kind of was reminiscent of the old 2000 music videos with heavy choreo, and it was cute, it was absolutely amazing. And that song, I almost feel like it's not as big as it should be, even though it's like over 100 million views on YouTube. I feel like it's not as big as it should be, and it should be even bigger. So yeah, good for them for getting best choreo, but I think there could have been more categories, that she was celebrated in, essentially. And the next story essentially has to do with Viacom's cancellation of their BET Hip Hop Awards and Soul Train Awards. Soul Train Awards has been around since the 80s. BET Hip Hop Awards is fairly new. And I guess it came about, to recognize the strengths in the categories and the versatility in hip hop music, but they're cancelling that award show. And I almost feel like I don't care. One, because I feel like I haven't really been watching these award shows since the TV era. Like, I don't really stream award shows. Like, there's something about watching an award show on television that hits different to streaming an award show, if that makes sense. I always feel like it belongs in that generation. And maybe we need to find a new way of recognizing people that's kind of current and more relevant to the times. So they're cancelling these award shows, probably due to ratings. They're probably not getting as much ad revenue that they want, and so it's not necessarily covering the costs to the extent that they wanted. So maybe they're footing a larger bill and it's not making any business sense. At the end of the day, I feel like it often always boils down to the ones and twos, the numbers. Does it actually make any business sense? If it's not making business sense, if nobody cares, why do we still dragging it on? And I think Viacom, generally, I think there might be just a problem with them maintaining relevancy in some ways, because MTV, the concept of MTV used to be music videos. That's the channel we'd all go to see what's the latest and the newest content. And because it didn't necessarily, or it didn't work out, them putting themselves on a YouTube platform, i.e. the whole Vivo thing didn't really work out, and they didn't become the institution that YouTube has become, i.e. evolved with the times. The channel and the shows and the offerings have become irrelevant, so now it's just kind of like a platform for reality TV. RuPaul's Drag Race basically keeps the lights on that network, because that's the one thing I know that plays there. But other than that, what else plays? Apparently Ridiculousness also plays 24/7, which I'm just like, well, is MTV now just like what's that platform? Snapchat? Like, it's just posting random videos of people doing stunts. Like, look where Snapchat is and look where MTV is as well. I think there could be quite a, few commonalities and similarities beyond just the color. They're both yellow, but like, really, it's concerning. And BET as well. I mean, BET has become, as Tyler Perry's network, essentially, and a lot of his shows are on there, and while the storylines are always great, and I always say this about him, how it's put together is where the problem is, and I just feel like the quality is compromised, and we deserve better quality as black people, and that can't be the pinnacle of black entertainment. I think more black creators need to be given opportunity to produce content, and we can't just overly rely on one person. It just becomes exhausting, and I feel like that network is also tired in that regard. Like when you think of BET in the Johnson days, I think that was a family that owned it or something like that. I'm not sure, I don't remember what the actual name was, but when you think of those days, like the 2000s, that was quality television. There were so many different shows from so many different creatives, black creatives, and that's why we fell in love with the network. It gave black people a sense of hope, and they were seen. Now it's just like BET in the eyes of Tyler Perry. That's it. Then what? That's not sustainable, especially because he's not even like, his content isn't like, it's great storyline, but it's not great quality, and that's always my problem. So BET also kind of irrelevant, because what's the value proposition? Why do we tune in to watch BET for? Nickelodeon. Let's not even go there. Because like, who is still watching Nickelodeon to this day? Even the award show, like, it's also irrelevant. Kids' Choice Awards. Doesn't have the same effect it did when the shows that made Nickelodeon big were there. Now it's just like, why are we even still doing it? It's just an escalation of commitment. And the list goes on. Comedy Central, they're busy cancelling shows left, right, and center. I just feel like they just need to go back to the drawing board and reconceptualize their relevancy, and the people who they want to employ to sort of further the vision that they want to get to where they need to. And I don't think the current people, i.e. the people I just mentioned, are necessarily helping that vision. So yeah, cancelling award shows is really only the tip of the iceberg for the things that they need to do to shift the network. But also making award shows relevant gives people a reason to tune into the show. And also not necessarily like showing that these award shows are kind of very political would also help, because I think a big reason why a lot of people are kind of frustrated and annoyed with award shows is that it just looks political. It looks like scratch my back, I scratch your back, and we award people based on, I don't know, whatever conversations are happening behind the scenes that get these people into these rooms to get this acknowledgement, and people are becoming frustrated and annoyed by that because we can see through the politics, and winning an award doesn't mean what it meant back then, and so it's like now useless because it's like we don't even care, so yeah, there's a lot of going back to the drawing board that they need to do. It's a pity that Soul Train and the Hip Hop Awards were cancelled, but I think, them scratching the things that they were carrying due to escalation of commitment will help them to have a blank canvas and to reimagine what actually needs to happen on that network, because at this point, they are not going anywhere. And I also feel like, just as I roll into the next story, with these award shows, the prestige that they have has dwindled as well, because I feel like being famous doesn't mean what it meant back then. Do you get what I mean? Like, it almost feels like every other person is famous nowadays because of some viral stupid moment that made them a big deal, but they're not really a big deal, because what made them go up just as quickly, made people lose interest just as quickly, because it's like, entertained, okay, now I'm bored, We all have very short, I guess, attention spans, and it's difficult for people to keep people entertained for a long time, but also I feel like because of that, people can go viral for the stupidest things and be considered famous, but they're not really famous because they just had one viral moment, The metrics in which people use to tally fame or to make an assessment of if somebody's famous or not, i.e. followers and likes, which is also vanity. It's got nothing to do with talent. It's all political. It's all, like just random stuff that's very much can be manipulated, but is not a reflection of talent. Some of the greatest artists in the world don't necessarily have the biggest followings, but they're great. And some of the most ridiculous and most useless people in the world have such huge followings. Does that make them huge? Does that make them famous? Does that make them celebrities? I don't think so. The whole blurring of the line between influencer and celebrity because somebody's got likes, and because we now judge a person's fame because of how many likes that they have, is just very has cheapened the celebrity brand. It doesn't mean what it meant to be famous now. It's almost like a fleeting thing, and because of that, people are finding it difficult to continue relevancy and to stay relevant for very long periods of time and to become generational talent, because what are you beyond just another viral moment, So, yeah, man, it's a very interesting era that we're in, The democracy of fame has almost cheapened it, and, with the exclusivity, the club element, and the, years of work, your artist, development, and you actually needed to have a talent, you needed to have done something for a very long time, and then at some point you will find that limelight, as opposed to you posted a cute little video, oh my gosh, you went relevant, you went viral, now you're famous. There was an element of process that was involved in becoming famous back then, which made it an institution, and which made, the people who were famous then more credible, which is why I think a lot of new artists now are struggling, which is why these, award shows are irrelevant, because it's like, if we don't really care about these artists, why are we celebrating them? Why are we even awarding them anything, if they're just another viral moment that's soon to be forgotten? So, very, very complicated, very dicey, and, it leads me into my next story, which, is another, I feel, ploy for relevance with this institution, which I think started off beautifully, and now it's just kind of like being sucked into how do we stay relevant? Let's get a viral moment. So Apple is releasing a new iPhone in 2026, and it's like a foldable iPhone. I guess it looks like one of those Samsungs, because Samsung has been making foldable phones. So yeah, and apparently it's projected to sell 10 million allegedly units, and it's going to be priced at 2K, which is also very expensive, because I think iPhones are generally expensive in general. And again, this is an entity that I feel like their products were great back in the day. Now it's like, what are we doing, to be honest? I have an iPad from 2013 that is still intact, then I obviously have an iPhone which is within this decade, in that era, and it kind of adds up, but in a way that I'm just like, this kind of gives off planned obsolescence. It kind of gives off, let's not make the product, allegedly as good as it was, so that there's quicker replacement and we can continue to generate revenue more frequently from a person who has been buying, and when you're loyal to a brand, you continue to buy it. But like, how they can make you buy more is by not necessarily making their products as durable so that you can buy it more frequently. And I feel like this whole evolution of them trying to make a foldable phone, what is the whole purpose of it? Like, the why is what's missing. Is it just because we want to be viral? We want to, spark some conversation, or there is some technology that they're developing that's actually going to make people's lives better, as opposed to just the look and feel of a phone? I think the purpose has been lost. And when the purpose is lost, that's when people start to get nervous, because as big as BlackBerry was, we all know how big BlackBerry was, and we all know how big Nokia was as well. They all died down just as quickly as they became big. You know what I mean? Like, they all sort of dwindled, and I don't want to see that happen to Apple, because for me, I'm always just like, let me support the gays, because Tim Cook, queer person. I just feel like Apple's purpose, and maybe the people who are sort of marketing it and within the technology division, don't necessarily have a sense of purpose, and because of that, we aren't getting the viewers aren't getting something that's keeping them invested, and maybe that's not the point for them. It's just to keep rolling out a new product, to keep current, which I don't think should be the purpose. I think the purpose of Apple, for me, at least from what I understand, should have always been quality. So yeah, I don't really care about the foldable phone, because there are many foldable products on the market, or in the market, but why? The why is what's important, not the what. And to end off on a musical note, as per usual, darling, I started listening to this album called Love Is Not Enough by Maleek Berry. Obviously, I've been speaking about Maleek Berry in bits and pieces over the past few weeks, because I feel like he's really just been grinding, hey? Like, this man has been working and putting out some great content. And this is the first, and I've obviously listened to bits and pieces of this body of work, but never in its complete form. So I listened to the album Love Is Not Enough, and there are at least 5 songs on the album that I'm like bopping to, Summer 25, Situation, All Over You, Lately, I think I mentioned Situation, but there's like kind of a couple of songs that I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, you are doing the most. And this is the quality. This feels like it's been years in the making. It feels like every situation, every song is inspired by something real, it may not have been the same situation, but it feels like there's some type of story and truth behind it, and that's what I love about his music. And beyond that, there's a general feel, look, and theme of it, which I love, because it doesn't feel like the album is random pieces of art that's kind of collaged into one thing. It feels like there's a general messaging, and a general feel. And that's what I love about it. Like, it really could be the album of the year, people. Let's be honest. Like, I've really been enjoying it, and I actually want him to go on tour with this album. Like, I really want him to have like a full concert series somewhere here in the US, and give us content and give us something to listen to and to get the feels on. So I think it's just like a really absolutely great body of work, and Maleek Berry, like, I really hope he continues on this trajectory and continues to make amazing music, because he is really quite a talented musician and has never necessarily gotten the mainstream clout as some of the other artists, but has always been there and has always sort of held it down in his lane, which I respect quite a lot. So yeah, man, Maleek, Love Is Not Enough deserves a US tour, and I hope that you give that to the people, because we want more. Anyway, babies, I hope you've enjoyed this episode of The Messiest Bitch on the Internet. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and also follow us on Instagram at BigMoneyEntertainment_, and I'll see you again on the next one.